Okay, so today we will continue the course materials regarding the internal combustion engines. Yeah. So in the previous meeting with Pamiki, Pamiki already explained, yeah, about the internal combustion engine characteristic and performance, yeah, as well as the difference between the 2 and 4 stroke piston engines, yeah, and several applications that actually use the industrial diesel engines, yeah, especially in the industrial applications. So for today, I will continue the materials, yeah, still with the combustion engines. Yeah, we'll discuss regarding the maybe flashback, yeah, using regarding the Otto cycle, diesel cycle, Brayton cycle. I think you have been also learned this kind of things in thermodynamics class, yeah. And I will continue with the chemical industry applications and maybe try to flashback also regarding the 2 and 4 stroke internal combustion engines, yeah. And in the last part of this course materials, I will explain regarding the diesel oils and also the examples, yeah, the examples of some of the calculations and regarding the diesel motor with 2 or 4 strokes, yeah, and we will try to have a look through it later. Okay, so I will share the slide first. My video first. Okay, share screen. Can you see the slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so yeah, so the beginning of these materials, maybe I'll try to explain about the combustion engines. Yeah, so the piston combustion engines, I think Pamiki also have introduced you in generals. Yeah, what is actually the internal combustion engine and what is actually the definitions of the piston combustion engine. So the piston combustion engines, both spark and compression ignitions engines, still occupy the top positions in terms of the price, operating, and maintenance costs. Yeah, and it's actually reliable and available in various capacities. Yeah, therefore, this kind of the piston fuel motors are also widely used in some industrial chemical plants. Yeah, as propulsions for generating the electricity. Yeah. And the piston engine is an internal combustion engine with combustions inside the motor itself. Yeah, so included in this group. So it's actually divided into 3 in this case. The first one is the spark ignition engine. So in principle, the combustion is ignited with a spark plug. Yeah, and the main fuel is commonly used gasoline. So in the basis of the thermodynamics, yeah, it is actually based on the principle of the Otto cycle. Yeah, and the second one is actually the diesel motor. So it's actually, in principle, is ignited combustions with the high temperature due to the compressed air. Yeah, and the fuels, the main fuel is commonly used is actually diesel fuel. And the basic thermodynamics that used in this second classifications is actually the diesel cycle. And the third one is the gas turbine. So in principle, in the gas turbine is actually the continuous combustions. So the fuel is more flexible, yeah, whether we can actually use the gasoline, diesel, and so on. And the basic thermodynamics that is actually support these classifications is actually the Brayton cycle. Anyone still remember what is the difference between the Otto, diesel, and Brayton cycle? What is actually the main difference between these 3 cycles? Anyone still remember? I think during your thermodynamic class, yeah, in the last year or last semester? I think last year, yeah. Anyone?
The efficiencies are different, sir.
Okay, of course, yeah, the efficiency is different. But regarding the concept, yeah, so the concept, what is actually the main difference, yeah, in the cycle?
I'm sorry, sir, the difference between what cycles, sir?
So between these 3 cycles. So it's actually the cycle, yeah. So for these 3 cycles, which is actually Otto, Diesel, and Brayton. It actually, when you plot the graph, the PV curve, so there will be kind of the cycle, explaining about this or each type of this cycle. So the Otto, Diesel, and Brayton. Anyone still remember?
I frankly only remember about the efficiency, like Kevin said.
Okay.
Sir.
Yep.
For the, I don't remember much,
Okay.
but for the Otto and Diesel cycle,
Mm-hmm.
difference is that the Diesel cycle, I think it's at constant pressure, was it?
Yep.
And the Otto is at constant volume, right?
Okay. Yes, it's correct. Yes. How about the Brayton cycle? So you explained about the Otto and Diesel, and how about the Brayton cycle? Yes, correct. Yeah. So the Diesel cycle is the Otto cycle is actually we call it the isochoric, while the Diesel cycle is isobaric, When you especially in the second stage, in this case, when you actually input the heat, in this case, Okay, so if you forgot, maybe I'll try to flashback, and explain it to you regarding each cycle, So for the Otto cycle, go back to the plan. Sorry. Okay, so the Otto cycle is actually describes how the heat engines turn gasoline into the motions. So or we can actually call it the cycle that occurs in the gasoline engines. And in the process steps in the Otto cycles are actually divided into 4 steps, in the PV diagram in this case, So you plotting about the pressure and also the volumes in this case, So for the first step, so the process 1 to 2 is actually during this phase the piston will be drawn up, so it can actually compress the fuel air mixtures that enter the chamber. So that's why in this case the compressions will cause the mixture to increase slightly in pressure, isentropically, so with the similar entropy in this case, So when the cycle reach the point number 2, that is when the fuel is actually made by the spark plug, to be ignited. Okay. And going to the second step, where it's actually from point number 2 to point number 3, this is actually where the combustion occurs due to the ignitions of fuel by the spark plug. So the combustions of the gas is actually complete at point number 3, in this case. So which result in a high pressurized chamber that has a lot of heat, or we call it the thermal energy. So in terms of thermodynamics, this is actually referred to. So if in thermodynamics, if actually at the constant volume, we call it as isochoric. Okay, so going to this step number 3, from points or process point number 3 to 4, this is what you call it the thermal energy in the chamber as a result of the combustions is actually used to do work on the piston, which pushes the piston down and increasing the volumes of the chamber. So the volumes of the chambers is increasing while the pressure is actually dropped. Isentropically. So or we call it the adiabatic reversibles. In this case. Okay. So this is also known as the power stroke, because it is actually when the thermal energy is turned into the motions to power the machines or maybe the vehicles in this case. Okay, and the last one, the step number 4, from point 4 to point 1 is actually in this case the all waste heat is actually expelled from the engine chamber, or we call it the dissipations or exhaustions. So as the heat leaves the gas, the molecules will actually lose the, we call it the kinetic energy, yeah, causing the decrease in pressure, but in the constant volumes, yeah, in this case. Then the exhaust phase occurs when the remaining mixtures in the chamber is compressed by the piston to be exhausted, yeah, without changing the pressures. Okay, so this is actually the steps, yeah, in the Otto cycles. Have you got it in thermodynamics? I believe that you get it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, this is actually what you call it the Otto cycles, and we can actually calculate the efficiency based on this formula. Yeah, so hopefully you still remember how to calculate the efficiency for the Otto cycle. Okay, so for the next one, we call it the diesel cycle. Yeah, the diesel cycle is actually the diesel engines operate at the high pressure ratios to achieve maximum efficiency. Yeah. So in the thermodynamic cycle diagram of the idle diesel engine, so there's actually similar, yeah. So there are actually in total 4 steps, yeah, in the diesel cycle, yeah. In this case, for in the diesel engine cycle, the combustion is actually occurs at the constant pressure, yeah. So the difference between the diesel and Otto is actually in this process, yeah, in the second process, the second step of the process, yeah. Where in the Otto cycles, yeah, we can see that the combustions is actually occurs at the constant volume, yeah, while in the diesel cycle it actually occurs in the constant pressure, or we call it the isobaric, yeah. Okay, so the power then will actually created by each of these cycles in the area within the cycles, yeah. So this, yeah. And the cycle can operate with a higher compression ratio than the Otto cycles because only air is actually compressed and there is no risk of auto ignitions of the fuel. Yeah. Although for a given compression ratio, the Otto cycle has actually higher efficiency, yeah, compared with the diesel cycle. Yeah. So yeah, the only difference is actually only this step. Yeah. So the rest of the process is actually almost the same with the Otto cycle. And you can actually calculate the cycle efficiency, yeah, by using this formula, by also considering the energy balance, yeah, of this process. Okay, and the last one, we call it the Brayton cycle. Yeah, so in the Brayton cycles, it actually describes how heat engine extracts energy from the flowing fuel and air to produce the useful work. Yeah, so which still the same. It's actually further used for the drive of a vehicle. Yeah. So, or we call it the Brayton cycle as do you know what is the synonym of the Brayton cycle? What is commonly called? We call it the Joule cycle, yeah. So we can actually use the terms of the Joule cycle as well to define the Brayton cycle, yeah. So in general, the Brayton cycle describes the functional principle of the constant pressure heat engine, yeah. So the step is the same. It's actually 4 steps. Yeah. So the first step is actually isentropic compressions. Yeah. So or we call it or in definitions, the gas is actually sucked, yeah, from the atmosphere to the engine of the combustion chamber. Yeah, and this process is, yeah, also known as a reversible adiabatic process. Yeah, or we can actually call it as isentropic because there is no heat transfer in this case. Yeah. Okay, so the second step is actually the same. Yeah, so air receiving the heats, yeah, in the constant pressure. In this case, yeah. So as the yeah, isentropic compressions is actually completed, then the compressed gas is actually transferred to the combustion chamber where an external source is used to provide heat to the working gas. Yeah. So due to the heat additions, yeah, in this case, the compressed gas will be ignited, and this ignition process further adds heat to the gas. Yeah. Okay. So during this whole process, the enthalpy of the working gas will be actually increased. Yeah. And the third steps, from point number 3 to point number 4, is actually the expansions, yeah, expansions to produce the work isentropically, yeah, and finally it will actually there is actually the dissipations of the heat, yeah, or we call it the exhaustions of the heat or cooling process at the constant pressure or isobaric, yeah, from step number 4 to step number 1. Okay, so in this case, the gas will be expelled via, or maybe via heat exchanges, yeah, via heat exchanges, due to that the temperatures of the gas decreases, but the pressure is remain the same, yeah, or constant in this case. And you can calculate the heat, the thermal efficiency by using this formula. Yeah. So the efficiency is actually the net work divided by the heat input. Yeah. Or we can actually use this formula, yeah, to calculate the efficiency of the thermal in the Brayton cycle. Okay, so just give a flashback of the fundamental theory of the Otto, Diesel, and also Brayton cycle. Yeah. So in the chemical industry applications, yeah, so the diesel motors is commonly used to drive the generators. Yeah, again, it's commonly used to generate the electricity. Yeah, and the main power source or a backup power source. Yeah. So for example, in this case, in the oil refinery, yeah, in Dumai, so there's actually PLTD. So PLTD is abbreviated as a pembangkit listrik tenaga diesel. Yeah. So with the capacity of 4 times 3.5 megawatt, and have also the PLTG, pembangkit listrik tenaga gas. Yeah. And the gas turbine become main sources, yeah, with a capacity or power of 17.5 megawatt and 10 megawatt. Yeah. And in addition, the cement plant in Palimanan also use the PLTD, yeah, as a reserve, 700 kVA at plant 9 and 1,200 kVA at plant 10. And the last one is the polypropylene plant, yeah, in Cilegon, using pembangkit listrik tenaga diesel as well, yeah, 2 times 1 kVA. Yeah, so they actually, yeah, of course, there are actually a lot of examples here, utilizing the diesels or also gas turbine in this case, yeah, in order to support for the electricity generations. Okay, so the next one is, we call it the reciprocating engine. Yeah, so the diesel motor and the spark plug motors are generally still using a reciprocating engine. Yeah, so although the rotary engines have been widely developed, yeah, so I think Pak Miki also already mentions, yeah, so in relations to the combustion cycle, the piston motors are classified into these 2 types. Yeah, so the first one, we call it the 2 strokes, or we can actually define it as the 1 round and 1 burn for each cycle. While the second classifications, we call it the 4 strokes, yeah, 2 rounds and 1 burn for each cycle. Yeah. So for example, this is actually the examples of the reciprocating engine. Yeah. So the components of the typical 4-stroke cycle. Yeah. So we call it in here. Yeah. There is animations, and for each step is actually defined as here. Yeah. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So in this case, we have, yeah, if I make the, so there's actually consists of the several parts, yeah, in the 4 strokes engines, yeah, in this case. So we have, we call it the intake. So we have intake camshaft. So we have also the exhaust, yeah, or we define it as the E. So we call it the exhaust. And we have in here is actually, we call it the S, yeah, defined as the spark plug. And we have in here is actually, yeah, sorry, yeah. So I think this, I mean, this parts, yeah. So because it's actually moving, so just make sure that this is actually this part, yeah. So this part, we call it the P, or we call it the piston, yeah. And we have also here the R, or connecting rod. And the last one, we have the crankshaft. Yeah. Okay, so this is actually the typical components of the reciprocating engine. Yeah. So in principle, I think Pamiki maybe already explained, yeah, regarding the principle of the four-stroke engine, four-stroke engines, yeah. So there is actually four, because we call it the four-stroke. So there is actually the four stages, yeah, of the steps, yeah. In this case, the first one we call it the intake stroke, yeah. So there is actually intake stroke. So in this case, the intake, yeah, the intake here. So it's actually will be open, yeah. So this one, yeah, going through here. So the intake valve is open and the piston inside the cylinder will be travel downward, yeah, and drawing a mixture of air and fuel into the cylinder, yeah. So this is actually the cylinder, yeah. So the crankshafts will actually rotate, yeah, 180 degrees, yeah. And followed by the second steps, yeah, we call it the compression stroke, yeah. So as the engine continues to rotate, yeah, so the intake valve will be actually closed, yeah. So you can see it from here, yeah. So denoted as the blue and also the gray color. So the blue means it's actually open, yeah, where the gray is actually closed, yeah. So once the intake valve is actually closed and the piston moves upward in the cylinder, so it actually starts to compressing the air and fuel mixtures, yeah. So we can see also the crankshaft, yeah, will rotate 180 degrees, yeah, while the camshafts will actually rotate as well, yeah. And the third step, yeah, so we can see the third step in here. 1, 2, 3, yeah. So the third step is actually power stroke, yeah. So after intake stroke, there is actually compression stroke, okay. The third one, we call it the power stroke. Okay. So the power stroke is actually occurred when the piston gets near the top of the cylinder, yeah. So you can see here, yeah, when it actually reach the top of the cylinder, the spark at the spark plug will actually ignite the air and fuel mixtures, which actually forces the piston going downward, yeah. And again, the crankshaft will actually rotate 180 degrees, yeah, and the camshafts will rotate 90 degrees, yeah. And the last one, we call it the exhaust stroke. Yeah, so the engines again continues to rotate, yeah, and the piston again moves upward in the cylinder, and the exhaust, yeah, in here in the fourth step will be actually open, yeah, denoted as the yellow color in the fourth step. See, yeah, the yellow colors will be actually indicated that the exhaust valve is actually open, and the piston force the residual burn gas out of the exhaust valve, yeah, into the, yeah, maybe the exhaust system or maybe the exhaust, we call it exhaust manifold, yeah. So this is actually the main principle of the four strokes, yeah, four-stroke internal combustion engines. Yeah, hopefully Pamiki already explained, yeah. So there is actually we call it the difference between the four-stroke and two strokes. Maybe I'll try to give you the explanation, general explanations later on regarding the difference, yeah. Okay, so this is actually the main concept, yeah. So consists of 4 steps, yeah. So the first one we call it the suctions, yeah, yeah, suctions, and the second one we call it the compressions, yeah, compression stroke. So as the engines continues to rotate, the intake valve will be closed and the pistons move upward in the cylinder, yeah. So in here is actually move upward in the cylinders, while in the intake stroke, yeah, the cylinders will be travel downward, yeah. So the inlet or intake valve will be open, yeah. And the third one is actually power stroke again, yeah. So the power stroke, when the piston gets near the top of the cylinder, it will be ignited, yeah. The spark plug will ignite the air and fuel mixtures, yeah, which actually forces the piston to going downward, yeah. And the last one is exhaust or dissipations, yeah. So the engines, while the engines continues to rotate, the piston will be again move upward, yeah, in the cylinder, and the exhaust valve will be open, and the piston force the residual burn gas out of the exhaust valve, yeah, into the exhaust manifold. Okay. So this is actually the concept again. Yeah. So similar with the previous two slides, I guess. Okay. So however, so we have also another classifications. Yeah. So motor with the two-stroke type. Yeah. So in this case, with the same motor size as a four-stroke motor. Yeah. So we call it a two-stroke motor can produce more power. Yeah. But sometimes we call it the less thermal efficiency. Anyone knows what is the reason behind this? I think Pak Miki should explain about this. Yeah. So why the two-stroke motor can produce more power but less thermal efficiency? So if you compare it, for example, motorcycle, yeah. So there is actually a motorcycle with two-stroke, yeah, or we call it in Indonesia dua tak, yeah, and empat tak, yeah. So it's actually divided as the two-stroke and four-stroke types of the engines, yeah, in this case. Yeah. So if you have a look through the dua tak motorcycle, yeah, so it will actually produce kind of the black smoke, yeah. So it looks like the two-stroke types of the engines will actually produce a lot of emissions, yeah. While for the four-stroke emissions, yeah, it will actually produce less emissions. Yeah? So anyone can actually relate, yeah, regarding this, yeah. So why the two-stroke motor can produce more power but less thermal efficiency, as well as the higher pollutant emissions. Anyone?
Okay,
you can
go Gam.
No, you can go. Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
It can produce more power? Is it because every other stroke is a power stroke, sir?
Every other stroke is a power stroke? What do you mean?
So, so with a four-stroke, you have to take 4 strokes before combustion occurs, but with the two-stroke, every other stroke is a combustion stroke, but it's also less efficient because is it because the exhaust gases are not expelled? Is it because of that, sir?
Okay, yeah, for the power is actually correct, yeah, because the reason being why the two-stroke produce more power is two-stroke, there is actually only one power stroke for each revolutions, yeah, of the crankshaft, yeah, as I mentioned before, yeah. So for one complete cycle to produce the power, it only needs 2 stroke, yeah. But for the 4 strokes types of the engines, yeah, 4-stroke engines, there is 1 power stroke for 2 revolutions of the crankshaft, yeah. So it looks like it will produce 2 times more power, yeah, for the two-stroke motor, yeah. But for the efficiency, anyone can maybe have another reasons why the efficiency in the two-stroke motor is actually less compared with the 4-stroke motor?
Maybe, sir, because in the 4-stroke, it's more time for it to burn, while the two-stroke, it's like, yeah, it will mix with the amount of with the fuel and the exhaust gas, so it's not completely burned. It's already sent out and stuff. I don't know, sir, but I think something like that.
Okay. Any other reason maybe from other students? So I'll give you a chance to answer it. Okay, so please have a look through it. Yeah, so I will not give you an answer. Maybe, yeah, later on at the end of this class, there will be kind of the exercise, yeah, or small quiz maybe, yeah. So maybe one of the questions is actually regarding this, yeah. So please, you can actually try to find it, yeah. What is actually the main reasons of this, yeah. Okay, so I'll try to continue it first. Yeah. So the working stage of the two-stroke motor are the compressions. Yeah. So are the compression stroke and the expansion stroke. Yeah. So it looks like so when you have a look through the previous slide, yeah, so there is actually the suctions and also dissipations or exhaustions at the beginning and also at the end of the process of the four-stroke type, yeah. But in this case, it looks like the suctions and also the exhaustions is actually combined in the one stages, yeah. So in here, the suctions occurs at the end of the expansion stroke, yeah, and at the beginning of the compression stroke, while the ignitions and combustions occurs at the end of the compression stroke and at the beginning of the expansion stroke. Okay. Okay, so we need also to consider beside the type of the strokes, yeah, we need also to consider the energy balance, yeah. So in this case, the energy balance, the remainder of the fuel's energy from this heat losses, we call it the indicative horsepower or IHP. Yeah. So this power will actually move the piston, yeah, or give a motions, yeah, to the pistons. And we have also the indicative mechanical energy is also used to drive the mechanical combustion engine system. Yeah. And some of the indicative energy is actually used to drive the fuel pumps or actuate valves and so on. Yeah. And some of the indicative energy is actually lost. Yeah. So there is actually the energy loss due to the frictions or mechanical losses. Yeah. And we call it this one as a frictional horsepower. Yeah. So the remaining energy that can be used to move the shaft load as a mechanical energy, we call it the brake horsepower. So if I illustrated, yeah, before I give you the illustration, so this is actually the percentage of the energy, yeah. So the mechanical energy indicated by the horsepower usually is actually around 30 until 40%. So there will be the 5 heat losses in this case, yeah. Heat losses to the cylinder cooling, to the oil cooler, to the turbo aftercooler, to the exhaust flue gas, and also to the environment with a specific range of the percentage in here, yeah. So if I put it in the illustrations, yeah, in this case, so if we have the piston combustion engine as actually provided in here, yeah, sorry for the unclear figures in this case, yeah. So this is actually the schematic of the energy, yeah. So we have at the top parts actual thermal energy, which consists of the sensible heat, radiations of cooling, yeah. And in the middle part, we have also actually the energy loss, yeah, as I mentioned before, due to the frictions, yeah, so contents of the pumping or frictions and so on. And we have also the useful energy, or we call it the shaft work, yeah. So if we classify it in here, so there will be 3 classifications, yeah. So overall, we call it the fuel energy, yeah, consists of the thermal energy, frictions, horsepower, and also the brake horsepower, yeah. So the thermal energy as energy input in this case, yeah, and the frictions horsepower will actually causes the energy losses, while the brake horsepower is actually the useful energy that can be used to support, yeah, some of the applications, especially generating the electricity in this case. Okay. Okay. So the next one is we call it the fuels, yeah. So if you have a look through the SPBU, yeah. So anyone familiar, yeah, with the, I hope, yeah, I believe that you're familiar with the Pertamax Plus, yeah. We have also Biosolar, Bio Premium, Bio Pertamax, yeah. So what is the numbers indicated in here? 92, 95, yeah. But for the Bio Premium, it's not actually indicated, as well as for the Biosolar also is not indicated. Anyone knows what is the numbers displaying in this board? What do you call it?
Octane rating, sir.
Oh yeah, octane rating, yeah, or we call it the octane number, yeah. So what is the octane number means? So what is the 95 or 92 in here actually indicated to? Anyone have an idea for this?
Is it the number of octane in the fuel, sir?
Okay.
Is
octane in the
I know
fuel.
it's resistance to knocking. That's all I know, sir.
Okay. Any other comments? So what does the octane number? So yeah, we call it in here the octane number. Yeah. So what is the meaning of the higher octane number? Yeah. What is the indications if the fuels consists of the high octane number? So for example, if we compare the Pertamax, Premium, and Pertalite, for example, yeah. So anyone knows what is the octane number of the Premium? Search it. So it's actually 88, yeah. So the Pertalite has slightly increased the octane number, yeah. So around 90, and we have the Pertamax 92, yeah. So in here we have also the Pertamax Plus, yeah. Is actually 95, yeah. So what is the meaning of the higher octane number in the fuels indicated to?
The carbons are?
The carbon. So what do you mean with the carbons?
The higher octane number gives more carbon in the molecule or something like that, sir.
Okay. Any other comments from the girls maybe? So it's only Gama and Kevin during the discussions today. So maybe from Fatia or Nadifa, any comments?
Any comments?
Okay, so
from the meaning of octane number, sir?
Go ahead.
Well, I just did a quick Google, sir.
Okay, so as long as you can actually deliver the main message.
Oh, it is based on the comparison with the mixture of the isooctane and heptane from the one that's below there, the N-heptane and isooctane. So it's like a figure indicating the anti-knock of properties of a fuel.
Okay, yeah. So there will be the ratio, yeah, or we call it the isooctane and also the N-heptane, yeah. So I think I I actually already mentioned it in here, yeah. So you don't need to do a Google actually. So it's actually the mixtures of the N-heptane and also isooctane, yeah. Okay. So or another indications is if we have the higher the octane number, yeah. So we indicated that the more compressions, yeah, from the piston, the gasoline can withstand before igniting the engine, yeah. Or on the other words, the higher octanes allows the engines to have higher compression ratios, yeah. So what is the higher compression ratios mean? Yeah. So means that if we have the higher compression ratio, it will exhibit the higher combustion efficiency. Yeah. So the higher compression ratios and the combustion efficiency means the more power with less fuel and fewer exhaust gases. Yeah. So if you have a look through the diesel car and compare it, for example, with the gasoline or Pertamax, or maybe the vehicles that use higher octane number, yeah. So there will be more exhaust gases indicated by black smoke, yeah, usually, yeah, if you use kind of the diesel diesel fuels, yeah, in this case, yeah. So yeah, there's actually kind of the indications, yeah, or when you're comparing the diesel or with the gasoline, yeah, or with the higher octane number of the fuels, yeah. So based on the research, yeah, so I have actually find the research, yeah, from the MIT, yeah. So if the most people fill their cars with fuels consisting of the 98 octane number, yeah. So in this case, the USA could cut the annual carbon dioxide emissions by up to 35 million tons. Yeah, or we can say that it will save around $6 billion a year. Yeah. So in this case, it based on this research, it is actually concluded that if you use higher octane number, yeah, for your car, but yeah, again, but you have also have a proper engine, yeah, in this case, yeah, whether it's actually based on the diesel cycle or Otto cycle, yeah, in this case, yeah. So you have to use kind of the proper engines, and with the matching or with the match fuels that can be used, yeah. So for the diesel car, it is actually not recommended to use the gasoline, Pertamax, and so on, yeah. So you have to use kind of the proper fuel, because certain fuels have certain specifications, and it actually have meet the requirements of the engine in the vehicle as well, yeah. Okay, so in this case, while the diesel motor uses the diesel oil, yeah, which has a higher boiling point, an important property is actually the Cetan number, yeah. So for the diesel motor, yeah, so the important properties, we call it the cetane number, yeah. What is the cetane number? I will actually explain it in the next slide. So a fuel motor has been actually designed also to operate on a specific fuels, yeah. So a change in the type of the fuel will actually reduce the performance of the motor. Yeah. So again, as I mentioned before, yeah. So the specific motor, yeah, it will actually already match, yeah, with specific fuels that must be used, yeah, to get the optimum performance. Yeah. Otherwise, it will actually reduce the performance of the motor if you use the different fuels. Yeah. Okay. So if you have gasoline, in this case, or benzene, yeah. So the spark plug motor fuel is actually a mixture of the volatile hydrocarbons with about 8 carbon atoms, yeah. So in this case, the quality of the gasoline combustions is expressed by the octane number, yeah. So which actually a mixture of the N-heptane and isooctane. Okay, so in this case, I have the examples. We call it the CFR engine, yeah. Or we call it the cooperative fuel research engine. So this type of the instruments is actually used extensively throughout the world for testing, research, and instructions in the performance of the fuels, yeah. Or you can actually test the performance of the lubricants, yeah, for the internal combustion engine, yeah. So this is actually one of the tools to do a testing and research, yeah, for fuels and lubricant in the internal combustion engine. Okay, so I have an example in here, yeah. So the gasoline with an octane number of, for example, 87. So it actually means that if we use in the test motor, in this case the CFR, it will actually give the same detonation tendency as a mixture of the 87% of the I octane and 13% of the N-heptane. Yeah. So for I-octane, it has actually an octane number of 100, and N-heptane has an octane number of 0. Yeah. So the octane number of the gasoline can be increased even more than 100. Yeah. So by adding the additives. Yeah. So we call it the HOMC, which is actually the high octane MOGAS component. Yeah. So this blending or this kind of additive can actually boost, yeah, the octane number of the fuels. Yeah. However, if we have in here the tetraethyl lead, yeah, or we call it TEL, consisting of the lead atom, yeah, or other hydrocarbon compounds. So the use of this kind of the components has been reduced or even banned, yeah, because it actually causes the air pollutions, especially when you have the lead, yeah, in here. So the lead is actually classified as the hazardous metals, yeah, and also the heavy metals, which can actually causes the environmental pollutions. Yeah. And the gasoline with a low octane number of 70 and 80 is commonly suitable for the motor spark plugs, yeah, with a low compression ratio, about 7. Yeah. So again, so the compression ratio usually in the range of 8 to 1 or 10 to 1. Yeah, so the higher compression ratio, as I mentioned before, so it will actually indicating the higher combustion's efficiency. Yeah, so and it will actually exhibits the more power with less fuel and fewer exhaust gases. Yeah. So in this case, the every engines actually has a specific compression ratio. Yeah. So the air fuel mixtures is actually compressed in the cylinder to create ignitions. Yeah. And the force of which depends on the compression ratio. Yeah. Which indicating the volumes of the cylinder when the piston is at the bottom of its stroke versus the volume of the cylinder when the piston is at the top of its stroke. Yeah. So the compression ratio can be defined based off the volumes of the cylinder. Yeah. Okay, so going to the next slide. So this is one of the example, yeah, of the specifications of the Pertamina Dex or other fuels. Yeah, usually it displays several characteristics that need to be fulfilled. Yeah, so in this case there are around 25, yeah, 25 points. Yeah, like the Setan number, viscosity, distillation temperature at 90 and 95% volume of the distillate, yeah, flash point, carbon residues, moisture content, and so on. Yeah, so it is actually based on the ASTM, yeah. So or we call it the American Standard Testing and Material, yeah. So there will be a standard procedures, yeah. So if we already mentions in here that for example, the C10 number is based on D613 as ASTM D613, it means that the procedures to calculate or to test the C10 number already fulfilled this standard, yeah, with boundary conditions stated in here, yeah. So the minimum, for example, the C10 number in here is 48 until 53, yeah, depends on the ASTM that used as a reference. Yeah. Same thing with other type of the characteristic. Yeah. So it is actually based on the standard that has been created or standardized by the American Institute. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, this is another examples. So this is the examples for the specifications of the Pertamax. Yeah, so you can see that there is the octane number, yeah, oxidation stabilizations, stability of the oxidations, yeah, and sulfur content, lead content, phosphor content, and so on. Yeah. So we can actually say that after the fuel fulfilled these requirements, so it can actually deliver and distribute it, yeah, to the people. Okay, so the next one after we explain about the gasoline Pertamax premium Pertalite, yeah, with the octane number. So we have another type of the fuels. We call it the solar, yeah, or we call it diesel oil. Yeah. So the diesel oil, as I mentioned before, is actually there is actually the specific properties that must be considered. We call it the C10 number, yeah, which is the combustion property in the test motor, which is equivalent to the combustions of the hydrocarbon of the mixtures. Yeah. So there are actually two compounds in here. So previously in the octane number we have I-octane and N-heptane. Yeah. In here we have cetane, or we call it the N-hexadecane, and methyl naphthalene. So both of them, if we write down in the formula, the chemical formula is actually the same, C16H34. The difference is actually the type of the chain. Yeah. So for the N-hexadecane is actually straight chain or in the aliphatic, yeah, aliphatic forms, where for the methyl naphthalene is in the aromatic form. Yeah. Or in the kind of the ring, yeah, cincin aromatic, yeah, aromatic ring, yeah. So the C10 number is as a reference, yeah. So the values is actually 100. So same with the octane number, yeah. The I-octane is used as a reference with a value of 100, while the N-heptane as a 0. So in here, methyl naphthalene is the 0, 1, yeah. So if, for examples, in here we have cetane of 50%, it means that it consists of 50% of cetane and 50% of methyl naphthalene. Okay, so the solar cetane numbers generally is actually range from here, yeah, so 35 to 55, which means that the naphthalene one, yeah, so the methyl naphthalene one is actually have the high content as well, yeah, so it's almost around 50-50, yeah. So in Indonesia, the cetane number is determined by testing using the standardized instruments. We call it again the CFR, yeah, or Cooperative Fuel Research Engine. And the cetane number for the commercial diesel fuel is around 44 usually, yeah. So consists of 44 N-hexadecane and 56 methyl naphthalene, yeah. So compared to the gasoline, the storage and handling of the diesel is actually safer, yeah. Because of this, diesel motor are more widely used in industry, yeah, especially for the power plant, yeah. So like the PLTD, yeah, as I mentioned in the applications of industrial chemistry in the previous slide, yeah. So some of the industries is actually use diesel motors, yeah, as a support. So Pertamina is actually provides the diesel engine fuel in Indonesia in the 3 different forms, yeah. So based on the Marsudi reference. So the first one, we call it, based on the quality, yeah. So quality number 1, we call it the high speed diesel, yeah. So high speed diesels, we actually claim as the type of the diesel fuel that has a performance of the cetane number around 45, yeah. Cetane number is actually around 45. Yeah. So this type of fuel is generally used for diesel engine transportations, yeah, which are commonly used with mechanical pump injection system. Okay, so this type of the fuels commonly or is intended for types of motorized transportation vehicles, yeah, or we call it in the industrial machines, yeah. And the quality number 2, we call it the intermediate diesel oil, yeah, or abbreviated as IDO, yeah. Previously we abbreviated also as HSD, yeah. So for the intermediate diesel oil, is actually we get it from the results of the distillations of the black oil, which is actually liquid at a low temperature, usually has a low sulfur content, and it's actually acceptable for the medium speed diesel engine in the industrial sector. Yeah. And the last classifications, we call it the marine fuel oil, yeah, or abbreviated as the MFO, yeah. So in this type of the products, yeah, so the fuel oil is not a product of the distillations, but this type of the diesels is actually a result of the black residue, yeah. So this type of the oil has a higher viscosity, yeah, than the diesel oil. Okay, so commonly used in the direct combustions in large industries, yeah, and it's used also for the fuel for the steam power station, yeah. Okay, so the diesel engines with rotations above 500 RPM is actually classified or commonly used as the high-speed diesel fuel, yeah. And the diesel engines with the low speed, we can use the MFO or marine fuel oil. But however, before it can be used, yeah, the MFO must be heated to reduce its viscosity. Again, yeah, the one of the drawbacks, yeah, for the MFO type fuels is actually has the large viscosity. So therefore, we need to do the pre-treatment, which is actually heating process in order to reduce the viscosity of the fuel. Yeah, while the IDO fuels can be used without the preheating. Yeah, because the viscosity is already fulfilled the standard requirements. Okay, so this is the specifications again. Yeah, so for all of the specifications of the fuels, yeah, this is actually I get the example from the Pertamina. Yeah, so all of them already standardized based on the ASTM for all of the characteristics. Yeah, same. This one is for Pertamax Turbo. Yeah, so this is actually the highest octane number we have so far. Yeah, so the octane number is actually reached 98 in this case. Yeah. Okay, so we have also other fuels, yeah. So rather than the gasoline, Pertamax, Pertalite, yeah, biosolar and diesel fuels, we have also the other type of the fuels, yeah. So with the based on the oil crisis happening or obtained in 1970s, there were many attempts to replace the motor fuels, yeah. So we call it the gasohol. It's actually mixtures of the gasoline, yeah, 90% volumes with the alcohol, 10% volumes, yeah. So we get it, for examples, from the renewable sources, yeah, like the maybe from the from the syngas, yeah, maybe from the biomass gasifications, for example, yeah. So from the biomass gasifications, it will create, we call it the syngas. So we have CO and H2, yeah, carbon monoxide and hydrogen. So this is become the main reactants or materials to create an alcohol. Yeah, one of them is actually methanol. Yeah, so from here it will actually create the methanol, commonly using a catalyst, yeah, to enhance the reactions rate. Yeah, and the mixtures of the producer gas, yeah, in this case, the result of the gasifications of organic waste containing mainly, yeah, this is actually the another type, yeah. So from the gasifications of the organic waste, so we can use, for example, gasifications of several types of the waste of the organics, yeah. It will produce CO and H2 also as a renewable energy sources, yeah. So mixing with the diesel oil, 30% energy content, yeah. So they commonly used for the diesel motor or low-speed spark plug motor. Yeah. And also we have another type of the fuels, some mixtures of the vegetable oil, yeah, with the diesel for the diesel motor, or sometimes we call it the HVO, yeah, hydrotreated vegetable oils, yeah, because as a vegetable oils without the treatments, I think it will have actually very high moisture content as well as the volatile metal content. So that's why it needs the treatments. One of them, the treatments, we call it the hydrotreated treatments. Yeah. And we have also the natural gas, CNG, or natural gas, LPG. Yeah. For motors, fuel, spark plugs. Yeah. And another founding now, yeah, from TRK team, Teknik Reaksi Kimia and Catalysis, yeah, under supervisions of Pak Professor Subagjo, yeah. So the chemical engineering department is actually one of the inventor, yeah, to produce, we call it the benza, yeah, benzene sawit, yeah. So we can actually create the green gasoline from the TKKS, ya, tandan kosong kelapa sawit, or extracted from the sawit, ya, to create the benzene sawit, yeah. So using catalyst as well, yeah. But I'm not sure the type of the catalyst, but it actually use the catalyst to convert sawit, yeah, to gasoline. So can be actually converted to gasoline, already actually testing also in the plant, yeah. So green after, green gasoline, yeah, and other green types of the fuels, yeah. So it depends on the catalyst that is actually used. So the catalyst will have the selectivity towards the specific products, yeah. Okay, so this is the other type of the fuels that commonly already developed here until recent times. So another parameters that need also consider is actually the fuel properties. Yeah, I think the complete one is actually mentions in the tabulations as mentioned for the specific type of the fuels. It should fulfill the requirements stated by the ASTM. Yeah, but this 7 criteria is actually the top priority that must be fulfilled. Yeah, distillation volumes as well as the temperature. Yeah, viscosity, ash content, water content, sulfur content, flash point, as well as the heating values. Okay, so this is the examples of the distillation curve. Yeah, so in here we have, for examples, the HVO. So I think I'm use this. So HVO. So again, HVO is actually hydro-treated vegetable oil, while the B0 is actually the, I think, the pure gasoline. This one, the pure gasoline from the crude oils. Yeah. While in here we have B100, it means that I think this one is from the natural resources. Yeah. So B100 without the mixtures of the crude oils and also from the natural resources. Yeah. So, so the distillation curve in here is actually the graphical depictions of the boiling temperature of a fluid mixtures plotted against the volume fractions distilled. Yeah. So based on the ASTM D86 and ASTM D1160 in here. Yeah. So for the ASTM, if you, yeah, we can actually Googling, yeah. So using ASTM ASTM D1160 and ASTM D86, if you want to know the difference, yeah. So what is actually the difference? So the difference is, yeah, it is actually almost the same. So it's actually the standard test method for distillations of petroleum products. Yeah. In this case, it's actually, yeah, we can actually state it is a true analytical method, yeah, to determine the temperature, yeah, as a functions of the volume fractions distilled. Yeah. And there is actually a maximum liquid temperature to completely vaporize, yeah, for all of the components inside the fuels. Yeah. So for the ASTM D1160, the maximum temperature is actually 400 degrees C. Yeah. So if it's actually above 400 degrees C, it means that, yeah, you need to do kind of the modifications of the fuels. Yeah. Same with the ASTM D86. Yeah. So this, we call it the standard test method, also used to experimentally measure the batch distillation curve of a petroleum derived fuel at the atmospheric pressure. Yeah. So the difference is in here, we use the atmospheric pressure. And in here we use at reduced pressure. Yeah. So yeah, I think there is actually the standardizations, yeah, for this. Yeah. So if you compare it, for example, this is actually the type, yeah, the type of the fuels. Yeah, we have B0. So again, it's actually pure gasoline. HVO is actually the hydrotreated vegetable oil. B100 is actually the pure fuels from the natural resources. Yeah, I think this is the HVO from the ENI. I think this is from the, maybe from the institutions. Yeah. So we can have a look through here that all of the fuels already fulfill the requirements, yeah, because the maximum temperature reach, yeah, for all of the type the fuels in here is actually below the maximum standard that is actually set by the ASTM. Yeah, so all of the fuels in here can be actually used based on this, yeah, based on the distillation temperature in this case. Yeah, but yeah, we need to have a look through other characteristic again, yeah, to, as mentioned in the previous slide, tabulations. Yeah, so you have to fulfill all of the requirements if you want to use it commercially. Yeah. So this is the another type of the literatures that stated several compounds, yeah, and also chemical formula as well as the boiling point and freezing point, yeah, that can be used as a reference to identify, yeah, the distillation temperature as mentioned in the previous slide, yeah. So we have in here all of the compounds and all of the boiling point and freezing point that can be used as a reference. Yeah. So in this case, for example, if we have the 100% of the HVO or hydrotreated vegetable oil in here based on the chromatography techniques, yeah. So the retention time or classified as the TR, yeah, retention time, and also the, I think this is the intensity, if I'm not mistaken, yeah. So in here, we can see that, based again, chromatography is based on the polarity of the molecules. So we have so you need to remember again the MPa class, So it's based on the polarity. So we have the, what do you call it? The static phase and stationary phase in the chromatography. So it depends on what components that you put in the stationary and also static phase, and it will actually produce this kind of peaks. So again, the higher carbon contents, it will give you the higher retention time. So in here, we can see that the HVO, 100% HVO consists of the C12 until C18. So if we have a look through the tables, I think there is no C12 until C18. So we can actually have a look through other references, and we can actually state it that we can actually find for example, the characteristic boiling point or freezing point from each of the compounds displayed based on the chromatography techniques. Okay, so this is the examples of each type of the engine. So and also the maximum output as well as all other type of the characteristics. So this is just for your informations. The sources is from the Mitsubishi Heavy Industry in this case, and there is actually the type of the fuels also mentioned in here. So there is the HVO diesel oil, for this type of the models. So this type, the models of the engines will, it depends on the, I think the inventor. The inventor will actually give the specific name of the engine in this case, with a certain type of the characteristic mentioned in this table. Okay, so this is the power curve, performance curve, of the some of the one of the type of the engine. So this is the graphic between the net power and also the speed in RPM, I guess, and also the net torque, or the torque. So there will be the kind of the optimum net power, in the specific speed or the rotations in this case, So for the black, so there is no. Oh, okay. So the black line is actually indicating the left-hand side, which is actually to the net power, while the blue line indicating the net torque. So this is just the examples of the performance curve, of the engine, or in this case, we have the 4-cylinder 2.8 liter turbo diesel engine. Okay, so the last one, maybe this is our last course materials. So we will have a look through the examples. So the examples, how we can actually calculate or find out. So in this case, there is actually the diesel motor with 4 strokes types. So with details as follow. So we have a piston trajectory length, of 335 millimeter, or we can actually change the unit into the meter. So we have the number of pistons, specific fuel consumptions, shaft rotations. I hope Pak Miki also already give the characteristic and performance of the fuels. So actually I prepare also the materials, but when I saw the Pak Miki already give the materials, then I don't need to actually give it again to you. I hope you still remember how you can actually calculate this kind of the problems. So we have also the diameter piston, volumetric efficiency, and also the net heating values for this type of fuels. And we assume also the fuel is actually C16H34, and the density of fuel also given in here. So the questions is, if the loads or the power is actually 20 kilowatt and 40 kilowatt, then you need to determine the percentage of the excess air needed in the combustion process in this motor. So you need to take a look through the question first. So you need to calculate the percentage of the excess air. Oops, sorry. percentage of the excess air. Yeah, so you need to find out what is actually the formula to calculate the percentage of the excess air. Yeah, so the percentage of the excess air can be calculated. Yeah, is actually equals to the airflow, flow of the air. Yeah, minus the stoichiometric flow of the air. Yeah, divided by the stoichiometric. So the stoichiometric in this case is actually based on the stoichiometric reactions. Yeah. So we have in here C16 and H34, and you need to write down the formula for the combustions of this type of the fuels. Yeah. So, and we assumes that the combustions is actually complete combustions. Yeah, it's not a partial combustions, which means that the from the combustions process it produces only CO2 and water. Yeah. Okay, so I actually write down the answer already. Yeah. So this is actually the step by step how we actually calculate the excess air on different loads. Yeah. So first you need to calculate the air suction speed. Yeah. So you need to remember for the motor with 4 strokes in here, the formula is actually shaft rotations, which is 1,500 RPM divided by 2. Yeah. Then you will have this. Okay. And then after that, you need to calculate the surface area of the piston. Yeah. Calculated based on the because the surface area, because this is actually in the forms of the cylinder, then the surface area will be a circle. Yeah. So you can just use VR square or the square divided by 4. Yeah. Then you will get this. Don't forget to change the units. Yeah. Because this is actually stated in millimeter, then you need to change it to the meter. Okay, so to calculate the airflow, yeah. So I hope you still remember. I think Pak Miki already give the materials, yeah, to you. So it's actually the L or piston trajectory length multiplied by the surface area multiplied by the amount of the number of the piston or cylinder, yeah, and multiply by the air suction speed, yeah, multiply by the volumetric efficiency. Okay, volumetric efficiency is 90%, yeah, and we have the numbers of the cylinder also is given, yeah. So all of the parameters in here is actually given. Then you will get these values, yeah. Okay, so this is still in the meter cubic per hour, yeah, the unit. The one that we want to get is actually usually the airflow is actually in the mass per time unit, yeah, or in the kilogram per hour. Then we can actually make an assumptions that this conditions is in STP conditions, yeah, standard temperature and pressure, where 1 mole is equals to 22.4 liter, yeah, based on the using the PV and RT, and we assumes that it's actually in the STP conditions, then we can get this relationship, yeah. Or we can actually change the unit because it's in meter cubic, then we will get 0.0224 meter cubic, yeah. And we can assume also the molecular weight of the air is 28.84 kilogram per kilomole, or gram per mole is the same, yeah. So how do you get this one? Anyone knows? Why do we assume that molecular weight of the air is 28.84 kilogram per kilomole?
It's the MR of like nitrogen multiplied by the composition of it in air, in a mixed air, yeah.
Okay.
Plus oxygen.
Okay, so the MR of the nitrogen multiplied by the usually we can have 79%, yeah, of the nitrogens in the atmosphere, yeah, multiplied by the molecular weight of the nitrogens, and molecular weight of the oxygens multiplied by 21%. Yeah, so you can calculate it. I think you will get these values. Yeah, so the MR nitrogen is 28, yeah, and this one is 32 gram per mole, yeah, and you will get this. Okay, good, yeah. So after you make these assumptions, then we can calculate the airflow, yeah. So we transform the units, yeah, from meter cubic per hour into kilogram per hour, yeah. Okay, so by using this, yeah, so in here 1 mole is 0.0224 meter cubic, or we can actually state it that 0.001 kilomole is equals to this, yeah, is similar, yeah. And this is actually the molecular weight, yeah, 28.84 kilogram per 1 kilomole. Okay, so we will get this as an airflow, yeah. So again, go back to the formula, yeah. So the airflow already get it, yeah, for this case, yeah. So the next step is we need to calculate the stoichiometric air. In this case, the stoichiometric air based on the theoretical approach, yeah, based on the stoichiometric reactions. So we have C16 and H34 as a fuels, yeah, in here. Okay, so we do the combustions and we assume that it's a complete combustions. So it only generates CO2 and water, yeah. So you need to do the what do you call it? Yeah, balancing, yeah, balancing of the coefficients on the left hand side and right hand side, and make sure that all of the components or all of the atoms is actually already balanced, yeah, on the left and the right hand side. And you will get this, yeah, 24.5 as the coefficients of oxygens, and 16 and 17 for the coefficient of CO2 and water, respectively, yeah. And we will have the molecular weight of the fuels, yeah, 2 to 6. So you can calculate it based on this fuel, yeah. And you will get the stoichiometric air in here based on this, yeah. So we assume the oxygens, again, 21%, yeah, 21% of the oxygens in the atmosphere as a reference, yeah. So you can calculate it. So 24.5 based on the coefficients in here divided by the percentage of the atmosphere of the oxygens, yeah, 0.21, multiply by the molecular weight of the oxygens, molecular weight of the air, sorry, divided by the molecular weight of the fuels, yeah, because we would like to get this, yeah, kilogram air per kilogram fuels, yeah. So you need to multiply by the molecular weight of the air divided by the molecular weight of the fuels, yeah? And don't forget to use, yeah, 21% as a reference, yeah. Okay, so we already get stoichiometric air, yeah, and also we already get the airflow, yeah. So the next step is, yeah, you need to calculate, yeah, the excess air, yeah, for different load, yeah. So the first one is for the load of 20 kilowatt. What you have to do first, you need to calculate the fuel rate, yeah. So the fuel rate can be calculated by the specific fuel consumptions multiplied by the load, yeah. So this one, yeah, specific fuel consumption is also given, yeah, in here. So you will get sorry, not 5 liter per hour. Oh, because we assumes that, yeah, this one, yeah. So the density of the fuel is 0.8 kilogram per liter, yeah. Then you can actually convert, yeah, the volume unit to the mass unit, yeah, by multiplying this with the 0.8, yeah. So multiply by the density, yeah, kilogram per liter. Then you will get this, okay. And for the stoichiometric air, yeah, so you need to multiply the fuel rate, yeah, which is actually calculated before, yeah, with the stoichiometric air, yeah. So you will get this 59.56, yeah. And then you can calculate the excess air by using this formula, airflow minus stoichiometric air divided by the stoichiometric air, yeah. Then you will get this, yeah. So the excess air that's actually needed, yeah, for this problems is actually 2061% if the load is 20 kilowatt. Okay. While for the 40 kilowatts, you can use the same thing. The only difference is actually this one, yeah. Okay, the rest is actually the same. Yeah, so you will get around 980%, yeah, of the exhaust air needed, yeah, in the combustion process, yeah, in this type of the motor. Okay, any questions until this point? Hopefully it is clear. Okay, so if there is no questions, there will be an exercise here. Here. So the submission deadline is actually today, but I didn't actually decide the time. Do you want it to submit it during the lectures time, or you want to extend it until midnight?
Tonight, sir, please.
Okay, until night, yeah. So 23:59. Okay, so you can do it, yeah. Relax, yeah, until you find the proper time. But please submit it today to the EduNext, yeah. So the questions is this one, yeah. So that's why I didn't actually answer the first questions. This actually should be the first questions. So the A and this is the B. Okay. So the first questions is write a brief and clear descriptions why a two-stroke motor can produce more power, less thermal efficiency, yeah, than a four-stroke motor. And then the question number B is actually, yeah, almost the same with the previous one, but with different characteristics, yeah. And it produces also different power. Yeah. I will share the slides later, yeah, to the EduNext, and please have a look through the slides, yeah. And you can, yeah, you can actually open sources, yeah, to answer all of these questions. Okay, any other questions before I end up this course for today?
Sir, is there not yet the submission box in EduNext?
Yeah, I didn't actually put it. I will create it after this class.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Okay, so no questions? Okay, so if there is no more questions, I think I will end up this course. Yeah.